Hey family, it's your girl Carter Sade, and you are now tuned into, Carter's Table Talks. Hey guys! Welcome back, guys. Welcome to another episode of Carter's Table Talks. And today I have my good fellas on the show from Amisa and Marsh Law Firm. That's right, guys. Amisa and Marsh specializes right here in Washington, D.C. And they work with criminal court, DUIs, personal injury, and a few other things that we'll get into on this episode. But the best part is I actually got to work with them personally. So if you have any questions about an attorney and you think that you need legal assistance, go ahead. Let's tune into this episode right now and get educated. Welcome, guys, to Carter's Table Talks. I have to do it again. Like I was telling you guys earlier, I'm super excited to have you on the line because I had the opportunity to kind of work with you guys. And I think that it's very important that people understand representation and what it is that you guys have to offer and that we know our options and what's out there for us. So I thank you for your time today. How are y'all feeling?
I'm good.
I'm inside.
So, Anthony's on the line, and I'm probably going to refer to him as Tone, guys. And we have Albert as well. You guys, you could change your name at the corner. You could hit rename. You could make it say AJ and Tone.
I see your name now. Yeah. And most everybody knows me as Tone, so Tone is fine.
I want to put AJ in there so I can keep my street credit like I told you last time.
It's okay, because if I keep seeing Albert, I'm just going to say Albert. Okay. So let's just jump right into it, guys. I'm super excited to discuss your law firm. Kudos to you guys, but tell me the backstory. How did you guys even meet?
We actually met in law school. It's funny, Anthony went to Southern when I went to Southern, and he transferred to UDC after the first year, and I transferred after the first year in the second semester. But at Southern, me and him actually never spoke. I think I seen him one time at like a 1L flag football game. And he wasn't playing. He was just in there thugged out. And
they told you play sports?
He was there for the watch and the spectate.
Oh, okay.
In the previous life.
Right. You were just there to say you was there.
There was too much grass on the field for him. But so we never spoke because at Southern, there's an abundance of black people. It's overwhelming sometimes because it's at the law school, there's a ton of black people about to be lawyers. So I didn't actually speak to Anthony formally. We knew each other's names, obviously, because, of law school. But so when we got to UDC, I seen him the first day at Crim Pro, and I was like, it was just three brothers, and he was one of the three. So, we kind of started.
We kind of congregate together when we see our own.
Yeah, it was just a different world. I never knew an HBCU law school can be the opposite effect until I got to UDC Law, and it was just not a lot of black folks. And it was just a lot smaller school altogether. And so from that point, me and him kind of got just super cool. And he was kind of still relatively new to the area, right? Mm-hmm. And so me and him just became close that way. I came back home and he just came for a better opportunity to be in DC.
I was going to say, Tone, so what actually, just brought you to D.C., from Ohio to Southern to D.C.?
So originally when I went to Southern, I went there, I applied to a number of law schools, but I went there, I think, particularly because they were like, okay, well, if you come here, you don't have to pay out-of-state tuition. We'll charge you in-state tuition. I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. So I got there, and I love Southern, but Southern being what it is, it was like a bait and switch. I got there and they were like, oh no, nobody said that to you. We can't do that. And so I was paying out-of-state tuition there.
Out-of-state tuition for law school?
Right, out-of-state tuition for law school. And I got there and it was fine. It was fine. And I loved it. I made beautiful connections there. I still talk to some of the professors that I met there. Some of the friends I met there are still some of my very close friends. But it just wasn't worth it to me. I was so far from home in a place that's Louisiana is a little different than any other place in the world. And I have
never been, but I really want to go.
Yeah. No. You'll love it. You'll love, I don't know if you'll love living there, but you'll love visiting there. And that's kind of how I was. I didn't really love living there. I love visiting there. And then, I mean, it was just too expensive in terms of law school, especially since I knew I wasn't going to practice law there. And so I decided to leave. And when I left and came to UDC, they gave me a really nice scholarship package. So it was like,
okay.
I can't.
It's important because I know law school is expensive.
Exactly. And like at least my first year was like free. So
and it's funny though, because Southern and UDC are relatively a lot lower than most law schools. And so like, with Southern, it's almost like you're paying how much you would actually pay in-state tuition at another law school out of state. But it's still a lot when you don't have money.
So you could actually get scholarships to go to law school.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Do they call them scholarships, or is it like something else?
Yeah, it's called scholarship.
Okay, cool. So what type of law do you guys specialize in?
So I think for me, specialized is a weird word in the law because most people that are like solo practitioners or like starting their own firm, they're kind of general practice. But for us, I think where we are on our stripes is definitely criminal and family.
Okay.
We are well equipped with family law now. And I've been doing criminal. I mean, I've been doing criminal before I was even a lawyer.
I was gonna say, so when you guys decided that you wanted to go to law school, like what type of lawyer did you want to be?
I wanted to be a criminal attorney. I mean, for me, like, it's just been something that was intriguing to me since a close family member was trapped in the criminal justice system. Like most Black folks, right? Most of us have that story where we know someone wrongly accused and now is behind bars and we're trying to figure out the system.
Right.
So I always want to do criminal law. I actually never thought in a million years I'll be over here doing personal injury law and family law. But we gotta keep the lights on sometimes. And so some things you end up learning. And I tell Anthony all the time, man, I actually love family law and personal injury now. But it was definitely not a dream of mine.
So it wasn't your field of interest. What about you, Tom?
Same really, because I definitely became a lawyer to practice criminal law. Like I've done a number of things since I've been practicing law that don't have anything to do with criminal law, but it was definitely criminal law. I mean, like AJ would say, everybody's got a story except for this story. It included me. You know, what I mean, like I had an issue, and it was a criminal issue, and it wasn't on the up and up, and it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. Really, you know what I mean? And like, and I saw that the big issue was that my family and everybody around me, we didn't know any lawyers. We didn't know what to do. We didn't know anything. And so like, I don't want us as a people, as a family, as just anything to be in this position again. And like, so
that's interesting.
And the catalyst for me to be like, all right, well, maybe that's
so you got your record expunged.
yeah. I can get any job, any security clearance, everything's good now. But the experience, you know, sometimes say experience is the best teacher, and this is really one of those cases. So.
It's so crazy that you said that because I wanted to go to law school, and I was studying for the LSAT, and I did this internship with this amazing attorney, Miss Richardson, in Largo. And it was great, but it was because I got in trouble too. And then I was just like, well, I just want to know more. But then she told me ultimately that she didn't think that I would be happy as a lawyer. She said I wanted to do entirely too much. Like, you guys get in, you work the cases, and that's pretty much it. And she was like, oh, well, you want to find a shelter. You want to make sure they got food. You want to do all these different things that we don't deal with. And so I don't think you'd be fulfilled. But I know you guys also are part of a nonprofit too. So I was going to say, do you find 100% like total fulfillment in your career? Or do you feel like you still got a void that you're missing? Like, was it all that you really wanted it to be?
So, I mean, my bad for always going first.
Yeah, go for it, bro.
But I think that you can be whatever kind of lawyer you want to be, though. I respect Ms. Richardson's advice and everything all wholeheartedly. Mm-hmm. But if you want to find someone shelter, there's a million nonprofits in D.C. and Maryland. Definitely. Where you can actually take the extra step and do that. I mean, like, the way we kind of approach it, man, this is our community, right? And if we're not going to look out, who will? And so I feel wholeheartedly fulfilled because we can make decisions about how we want to go about our cases and treat our clients the way we want to. There's no one holding us to a guideline and check boxes and saying like, well, we don't do that because we're afraid of your safety. If we want a perfect example, we had a client got out of jail. We had his clothes, we had his wallet, we had his phone. We even got him an Uber so he can get back to Baltimore when he got out of jail because of this whole COVID-19 thing.
Mm-hmm.
That is not what most people do. You know what I mean? You get out, well, find your way home. You know what I'm saying? But like we was like, nah, we're gonna make sure this brother knows that we care. He spent his money. He trusted us, and so we made sure Anthony showed up with his clothes, his wallet, and everything else. I showed up with a box from his mom, which is like food, a care package, some extra clothes, and bought him an Uber to get back, paid for him to get in an Uber to get back to Baltimore from DC jail. You know, you know, it's an experience, but I think that the way we treat people definitely comes in full circle, and it brings that fulfillment part you were talking about.
Right. So do you guys find it hard to like code switch? Like, cause like me just being around y'all, like y'all mad chill, like Tone will wear grills sometimes in the summertime. Like, and then y'all show up to corporate America suited and booted, but do you find it hard to code switch?
Personally, me, I don't I don't necessarily. I think only because like I found a happy medium, I guess, between like how I would speak if I'm speaking to somebody who's not in our community, as opposed to if I was speaking to somebody who was. And I mean, even still, I mean, like it's and it has to kind of be the same, only because like we'll have to meet clients, myself and AJ as well, and we like I wear a lot of Jordans, you know what I'm saying? I'm tattooed from here to here, you know what I mean? And it's like I don't want to mute that. I have dreadlocks down my back. AJ does too.
Right.
And it's like we don't really. I wouldn't call it a code switch necessarily, because like some of our clients sometimes come from like situations where they're not like, they don't have that much money, or you know, it's just a situation, and we have to be able to read to them as well as we have to be able to read to, you know, the U.S. attorney or the judge on the case. And so I mean, like amongst colleagues, I mean, I think we've become comfortable with being ourselves.
That's good.
And that's fine for me. I wouldn't want anything else. I never came into this particular profession to be someone that I wasn't. So
do you know, like, so even with you guys bringing up locks, I think it was like 2016 or 17, like the whole dreadlock issue was in the newspaper, or whether or not it was legal to even have them in a professional setting. So like, do you guys come across stereotypes every day? Like, what are some that you feel like you face?
I mean, not really said to my face. You know what I mean? I think if I've had any issues.
No, I didn't say said to your face. I said there's some that you feel like you face.
Yeah. I guess I was thinking like no one has actually said anything to me, or like I have never really faced any, like, I don't feel like I faced any issues with people actually in my profession as I have against people that aren't in my profession, and people that are trying to kind of like give me like the one up. You know, you always get that one homeboy who ain't got nothing going on that tell you what you need to be doing,
right?
How you need to look. And honestly, I credit this to Anthony. I ain't really grow my locks until 2015, 2016. And me and him used to talk about it a lot. And he used to tell me, he was like, man, I ain't cutting my hair for nobody. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I was just like, man, I had the ush bush a couple times in law school. And I just, you know what I mean? The ugly stage is the ugly stage. So I just cut my hair.
Every hairstyle.
Yeah. So, but then when I grew, man, I just realized, like, man, I never really got here by being somebody else. And, like, honestly, I felt like more people respected me trying to be whoever I wanted to be and not me trying to fit somebody else's code. So, I haven't faced any, answer your immediate question, I haven't faced any type of, like, prejudice from that. But also, at this point,
because I would imagine y'all would walk in a room and it'd be like, oh.
Well, see, it's interesting because I started growing my locks in like 2007, 2008 when I was an undergrad at Bowling Green State University, a long time ago. And like, so by the time I got to law school, I remember the first day I got to law school, one of the professors told me, she was like, well, we're going to make sure you cut your hair before you graduate from here. And I was like, well,
what?
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, I never understood it. You know what I mean? Because I mean, like, by the time I finished law school, I'm pretty sure I probably graduated at the top of my class. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not an aptitude thing. Like this appearance has nothing to do with who I am, what I can do, or anything like that. I mean, it's just convincing other people. However, I think the most important thing to realize is that the only people who will actually bring that issue to your table are Black people.
Yep. I was gonna say that. I was gonna say, is it our own people? Like, do y'all find it is a distrust in the community with y'all sometimes?
I think we get more issues with our own than we get with people that aren't our own. But that's, you know what I mean, that's all engulfed in structural racism and everything else. You know what I mean? I don't think we approach anybody else differently. It's just like, it's just reality, right? We have that respectability politics in our community that we still kind of follow, right? You got to be this way. You got to dress this way. You got to talk this way. And kind of like the code switching thing, man. I don't actually believe in it. I just believe if I'm going to sound intelligent, I'm just going to sound like that all the time. You know what I mean? I'm not, you know. So, yeah, I agree with Anthony. It's really our people. I mean, me and him both get it. Like, even in law school, people that would tell us that we need to cut our hair, or like people that told me once after I got out of law school, I need to cut my hair. It was mostly people like us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I think that sometimes, like, even with me going to Mason for law, well, not for law school, for Mason for graduate school, and I did public administration, but it was only like 2 or 3 of us in my program, and even in that program, I found myself feeling uncomfortable with wearing natural hair or the way that I was like naturally showing up. I'm like, okay, I can speak the same way that you can speak. I'm very articulate, but I did, like, inside of myself, I could feel that there was a little bit of like, I need to do a little more. I don't know if it was like an insecurity, but it was definitely an underlying issue that made me be like, okay, I need to push the envelope a little bit more so I can be comfortable in this setting, because you got to make yourself realize that you do belong at the table. Like, you have a seat at this table. You're supposed to be here. And I think a lot of people, like, since they're not comfortable with that and they don't see it as much, they just think you're supposed to look and act and, you know, react a certain way.
No, I think I mean, it's interesting because both AJ and myself, our lactician, she had us both in a calendar for professionals that have locks. You know what I mean? I took pictures outside the Supreme Court, and AJ took pictures in our office, and you know, and it is a thing, and it's a thing I think that needs to be discussed. I mean, I think when I first started growing my hair, I didn't necessarily think about it, and then once I got older and got into a professional field, it was really a thing. You know what I mean? And so it's just like, to me, it was just like, okay, well, I said screw it years ago, but for a lot of people, it's just like it's a thing. So I mean, we try to deal with the best we can. Like I said, it's and, you know, we're staying in court. Sometimes I think maybe not the judge or anybody else maybe thinks too much about it, or maybe they do. They don't say anything. But I mean, it's just other people who think things. And you know, and then business is okay because of it, because other people look at it and they say, oh, those guys look like me.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're well spoken, they're well dressed. You know, we have on nice tailored suits, and the hair will be done and it's nice, and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so it's inspiring to people. But how about, like, can y'all remember y'all first moment, your first court case? Like, what was that feeling? Like when it was finally your turn to present something after all of the studying, after all of the mocks that y'all done in class, this was your moment. Y'all remember your first moment?
Absolutely. I remember like it was yesterday, man. I definitely do. You want to go first?
Yeah, I say, what was the feeling?
For me, I was nervous as hell. I'm not gonna lie. I was nervous. I didn't sleep that night. I was sweating. You know what I mean? I was but when I got there, it was just something. You know me, I don't want to say I'm confrontational. I don't want to build those stereotypes. Mm-hmm. But I like a good a legal joust, right? A legal battle. And this case, you want me to go into the case?
Yeah, you can go ahead and tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, this case was a school discipline case. Kid got suspended for walking into the school, and I guess it was unclear. Obviously, something happened. I think he walked into school distressed, and security guards was like holding him, and he was like trying to get loose, and it became an all-out brawl. This one 13-year-old kid and 4 security guards at the school. All out brawl, like everybody's throwing blows. And the problem was that this kid was being denied an IEP for the last 3 years. He was clearly emotionally disturbed. He was failing all his classes, clearly dyslexic. But the school, for some odd reason, did not find him eligible. So, I mean, it was important because I was finally starting to understand how these things kind of connect, right? Kids being expelled from school because they're not receiving the services or the treatment they should receive either at home or in the actual school, right? A kid like that is so severely emotionally disturbed, and I hate saying that word, but has a lot of emotional issues happening because no one's treating him. All the trauma he experiences at home, all the trauma that he experiences at school because he's not provided the services. Like, he should definitely have either someone walking with him, someone that he can meet when he comes into the school, something like that. He didn't have it. So what he has is he's approached by confrontation every day. And this one day, I think he just had enough. And,
we all have a breaking point.
Yeah, we do. And that when you're 13, you're not mature enough to understand how to handle that breaking point, Right. And not excusing his actions, but I mean, we won the case. I mean, the school had to give him the IEP and everything else. But it was just interesting to me to see grown men throwing punches at a 13-year-old boy.
Wow.
Like it unprovoked, right? Because they started throwing the blows first, and then he started defending himself. So I mean, I was upset and I was angry and I was hard on myself that night before because I was like, man, I gotta really show this family that they deserve some type of justice, right? He should be expelled. The school should be put on notice that this is what's going on, and it was cool. But yeah, I mean, that was my first case ever, and I thought
so you actually had a win for your first case. Did you have a win song?
Yeah. So I think the first case I ever had, it was a little bit different than that. But basically, the beautiful thing about going to school at UDC, I think, is that they allow you to practice law and represent somebody, even still while you're in law school.
One of y'all need to mute your phone.
Yeah, I think it's my laptop. I don't really know how to. But anywho, so the gentleman he got arrested and really he was on drugs. He was on PCP. I mean, it was in Southeast DC, and for some reason, I'm not sure why it happens. I think PCP is not really a huge thing anywhere else other than this.
No, but it is definitely in Southeast. When I first moved here, I was like, what is this? They look like zombies.
They're like, hey, the dope fiend lean is crazy. Yeah. So I mean, the gentleman, he got arrested, for doing something. He had pulled out a knife on a guy at the gas station, and then what really he got arrested for was biting a police officer. And so we had that was the case. The guy had bit a police officer, and I had never met him before. And I mean, like, and you get arrested, and then the first thing they do is like they assign me as an attorney to a client. And the only time I see him is through some distorted screen in the DC jail. I don't even know what he looks like. What's his name and his story and whatever I got. And so my first time standing in court was next to him. This guy who's bit a DC police officer, and it was interesting. You know what I mean? Because I knew
did y'all like stay up the whole night before prepping for this because you was that nervous, or it was just like,
No, I didn't know what I was dealing with. I literally 10, 15 minutes before I had to stand in court next to him. And so, I mean, it was no prep for it. It was just like, okay, I walk back there and they say, okay, here's your case. The guy's bit a DC police officer. And then you have to deal with it. It wasn't no prepping for it. It was me trying to be on my feet, trying to say, okay, well, you guys say he bit the police officer, but we got these things that make it not that bad. And, so it was interesting. I mean, we ended up, I ended up getting this case dismissed. So it worked out really well. But it's just a lot of different things that go involved.
Did he bite him though?
He bit him. Yeah.
That actually leads me to another question that I was talking to you guys about. How do you go about representing someone that you actually know is guilty?
I just do it because Anthony told me to.
You know, see, I think the thing for me is this. No matter what somebody did, and things can get gruesome and nasty and disgusting and you know, where you're like, I can't believe somebody did that. But at the end of the day, no matter what somebody did, they do always have a constitutional right for certain things. And one of those things are, you know, counsel.
Right.
Like somebody should protect your rights because our constitution, our laws, everything are written in a way to where the normal layperson does not understand what rights need to be protected. And so you should have someone like us. You know what I mean? And so it doesn't bother me to represent somebody because I mean,
I was going to say, do you ever feel like your decision to represent these people goes against your morals, or you can completely just separate it?
I mean, not yet. I mean, I think that that day might come.
Mm-hmm.
I think I took on a case that kind of rubbed the lines one time. You know about this case, Anthony, about the guy that called somebody else. You know what I mean? That case was rough for me, you know what I mean? Because for me, I am like Huey Newton to the core, you know what I mean?
Right.
It was just like, but the thing about these cases, and I think people don't realize, is that what you hear and what you read might not always be what it is. Okay. Not excusing it, but once I really got into the case, I realized that first off, I mean, this guy obviously thought he was black. You know what I mean? So the meaning behind what he was saying, I think, was completely different. Not saying it was right? Because I still kind of wholeheartedly don't agree with it at all. But I do think that the moral part, I became able to deal with it. But I agree with Anthony. I think that you got to realize that people have to realize that everyone has rights. And there was a long period of time where people like us didn't have these rights protected, you know, and people would trample all over it. So if we get into a system where someone has an allegation, right, where we don't actually know what happened, no one knows what happened besides the two people that were there. Right. You know? And if this individual is not protected, we have a system that continues to lock up people that are innocent, that get trapped in that system. Not saying that you're saying if we know they're guilty, but I think guilt and innocence is a faction of the law, right? You know, like we use it as automatic truth, but like the way the law describes guilt for criminal cases beyond a reasonable doubt. Right. And so I think that is kind of like how I view everything. Also, I don't think anybody belongs locked in a cage. Very small.
I struggle with that. I'm like, is there any other coping mechanisms? Like, yeah, I struggle with that too. Okay, so I do have another question. So is like hearsay, can you use that in court? Like, how far does that go? Could it be like if somebody really didn't have the evidence, any evidence other than he said, she said, could you actually use that in court?
What part of hearsay? So that's the thing that's funny about it, right? Hearsay is a body of law, basically, right? Like it's a rule of evidence, a ton of rules. There's all types of hearsay exceptions, right? So Crystal tells me that she was slapped. Yes, that's hearsay, right? Okay. However, I was there when Crystal got slapped, so I saw Crystal get slapped. So the real answer would be I saw Crystal get slapped, right? You see the difference?
Yeah.
So that wouldn't be considered hearsay. So hearsay technically is inadmissible in the court of law. But however, in administrative hearings, hearsay is admissible. Certain presentment hearings, hearsay is admissible. Detention hearings, hearsay is permissible.
Okay. So do you see a lot more hearsay when you guys do like family court? Because I meet a lot of people on the bus. I just be having casual conversations. And, you know, it's men and women, and they'll just say things like, well, I'm paying child support, but I can't see my child, for example. And then they go to court, and they're like, and she said this about me, and she said that about me, and the judge agreed.
I would think hearsay runs rampant in any type of family or you know, oh, my God. It's like, and then also, I mean, like, you have to understand, I think, when you deal with the law, some of the constitutional protections that you have, they're not enforced as strictly in a hearing that's not, or in a case that's not about criminal, because criminal involves, you know, you maybe could get locked up. You can get the death penalty. You get all these different type of things. So it's just like we're really focused on your constitutional rights and whether your rights are being violated. However, sometimes I think like family or domestic cases or things like that, you're not as worried about it. And hearsay can go, I could say, oh, my baby mama did this, and my baby daddy did this, and what I'm saying? It's just like, it's hard to get to the truth.
It is. But what about those, like, for the men who do like pay child support and don't get to see their children? What additional rights do they have? Because isn't that illegal? Or that's not illegal?
Oh, I mean, it's not illegal because it depends on who has custody, right? You would have to file for either partial or temporary custody, or not temporary custody, but like either joint custody, have some type of modified joint custody, or full custody. I mean, seeing your child.
But if we did have custody, like with this custody thing was established, and it's my turn to go pick up my child, and he or she is just still not letting me see my child, then what can I do?
Then she's violating the judge's order, right? But it depends on what the order is, right? So that's why it's important that you have a family law attorney like Mr. Marsh here, who would definitely get a order spelled out that would kind of like show when he has the opportunity to pick up his child. The problem with a lot of this stuff is people have these janky orders where like it's not really spelled out what's supposed to happen, right? Or, I mean, just gonna be honest, man, people are petty. When it comes to kids, I'm gonna tell you, man, people are really, really petty. And like, you gotta keep going back to court. And I think I tell anybody, when you're dealing with a custody or family issue, man, save your money. Because it's gonna be a long, drawn out fight, but it's gonna be worth it. Right. But
so what is the process when that, like, so with family court, for example, what is the process from like the day one? Is it like three trials? Do you have trials in this? Like, how does this work?
Yeah. I think say, to use the example that you use, and someone is like, okay, well, I can't see my kid. It was my turn to see my kid. This and that. I mean, on TV, you'll see a judge bring the gavel and say somebody's in contempt or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what somebody would file. It's like a motion for contempt. Like I was supposed to see my child. The court order says I was supposed to see my child. You didn't let me see my child. They'll file something like that, and then we'll go to court. We'll stand next to somebody and we'll represent them, and we'll tell them why the other party was in contempt. No matter how the other party felt or anything like this or that, like you were supposed to allow your baby's mother or father, whoever, to see this child, and you didn't allow them to see that child. And so, I mean, but the thing is, just like this isn't necessarily a quick process. Somebody could file a motion for contempt today, and it may be months before it's heard.
Months.
So, yeah. So
you can be without seeing your child for months until a decision is made.
Well, it's not necessarily that you won't see your child, because most times when we've seen it is that you know what I mean, it happened one time and this person had a motion to contempt, but she let him see him next weekend. But I think that is clear, just your viewers to know that just because you're paying child support doesn't mean you have the right to custody to that child. So those are two different things. Am I wrong, Anthony?
No, you're not wrong.
Because I would have thought, like, if I was paying child support, I have the right to see my child.
I agree with you. It makes sense to me that way, but that's just not how the law's kind of read out, right? Yeah. But you need to make sure that you establish some type of custody with the court. A lot of times, man, I've noticed a lot of brothers aren't really represented when they go through these proceedings. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is the woman gets them on child support and kind of tramples over them on the custody part. Right. You know what I'm saying? They might even get it child support in their favor because maybe they're underpaid or maybe they were able to kind of work the numbers good, but they get trampled when it comes to custody. You know what I mean? They might be every other weekend or whatever. And then when they want more time, the law says there has to be a substantial change in the custody, right? And something had to be a substantial change. And the reality is that substantial change is really hard to prove, right? Because if this is the custody order I decided of a year ago and nothing's changed, you're still working the same job, she's still a fit mother, she's still working the same job, the kid is cared for, what changed?
Right.
Because paying child support isn't really a good argument. So it's important from the beginning that you document everything and that you explain everything that's going on, everything your kid's telling you, so that when you do get to that custody report, you actually bringing out more facts, not hearsay.
Good old documentation, the point that we all miss. Like, when
This
we
is
actually need it, people don't have it. Like, we missed out on it. So you guys have the ability to decline cases. Like, what are some reasons behind cases that you would decline?
I think probably the biggest reason, and maybe it sounds unfair to say, is just like we fortunately and unfortunately, know how much something may cost.
Mm-hmm.
And so you may be asking us to do something that, from everything you've explained to us, we know maybe you can't afford.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
So it's like, well, you want to divorce this person, you want to do this and that, and it's like, we can't. You're not ready to pay what it costs to do that.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So that's one good reason. And as well, I think some things I think are just a lot of people think that they have a remedy by law, or they think that like they've been done wrong in a certain way, but it may not necessarily be a thing to where like, okay, there's some actual answer under the law for you. You know what I mean? You may be asking us to figure something out for you that the law doesn't take care of. Or I mean, like, or if it does take care of it, it won't be to the point of your satisfaction. So I mean, like, we can't do it. I mean, you're asking us to do something that we can't provide you like tangible results.
So do you guys like do consultations first? Like, how does the process work? If I wanted to, come to you guys and ask a few questions, like, how does that work? Because then I guess in the beginning you'll tell me whether or not you can take my case. So you guys do consultations?
Absolutely. I think we mostly do our consultations for free. Most people charge. We don't really charge. I mean, because like if your case is something we can take on and we know that you can pay, like we will get that money back on the other end. You know what I mean? Because we're just gonna work the hell out of your case and make sure that you're happy.
That part right there. I think people sometimes don't seek representation because they feel like they have to pay everything up front. So are there instances where you pay up front and then some you pay later, or is there like payment plans?
I think it depends on the case, right? Like if you're talking about like a family law case where you got a lot of moving parts, we got to see a lot of people, we got to go to a lot of these. We're going to need a substantial amount up front. So most times, like a DUI, man, we'll go anywhere from, depending on your case, from like $1,500 to $2,500, sometimes $3,000, depending on the case, right?
And this is called lawyer on retainer, or this is different?
I mean, yeah, you always got to sign a retainer because a retainer is your agreement to represent the person.
Okay.
Right? So it could be from $0 to $1,000 to $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
But with like a DUI case, we had one guy, he was paying us like $300 every 2 weeks. You know what I mean? And we allowed him to do that because, I mean, like there wasn't a lot of moving pieces in his case. We're not going to do that for everyone, but we knew that like he was struggling, he really needed us, it was fine. But then we had a guy who had a crazy divorce case, and we was like, bro, we need $3,500 up front. So it really just depends. Like, we'll work with you, but like, depending on what we got to do, we're a small firm, right? So a lot of that stuff is coming out of our personal pocket.
Yeah, and I think people don't understand that. Like, cause how long have you guys been a firm?
About what, a year now?
Yeah, about a year.
So you're getting your feet wet, even though you guys already have this experience.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just the business side. Like I think we have taken on cases where we haven't got paid for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
You still got to kind of like do the work on those cases, and it's like it doesn't allow you to kind of like grow as a business, right? Because if we're always under, the type of cases we can take are a lot different because we're not getting paid from them.
Right. So basically it's kind of like doing it pro bono, so that doesn't really help you.
Yeah, and it's like pro bono that you didn't agree upon, right? Because like every motion cost.
Yeah.
So entering my appearance costs, right? Me filing any motion that you want to file, me getting up out of my office or my house and going to like do investigations, our investigator costs by the hour. You know what I mean? So like all that stuff costs money, and like you want quality, but like a lot of times people can't afford quality, and that's unfortunate. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But in criminal, there's always a remedy for that, right? You got court-appointed lawyers who are just as good. You know what I mean? Lawyers in the country. But then you, like family cases, if we're talking about civil matters, you're not entitled to a lawyer, so you're going to have to pay.
So like in some instances you need, but in some instances you need a lawyer, and some you don't. So like small claims, is that like you don't have to have a lawyer for small claims?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. You don't need a lawyer, but I always would suggest if you're going to the court of law to get a lawyer because you just
Yeah,
don't.
I think you will always be benefited by having a lawyer. It's
Mm-hmm.
just some things you're not, I guess, by under the law, you're not prejudiced by not having a lawyer.
Right.
So, you know.
But I think it also looks better too. Do you think the judge takes you more seriously if you have representation?
I think the judges in DC are very, very good with pro se defending the plaintiffs. The problem is you just don't know what the hell you're talking about. So everyone at some point gets tired of you and your shit because you don't know what you're talking about. You know, and then like, what happens is like you'll end up making this other attorney do more work because you don't know what you're talking about. So now that other person is spending more money because their attorney's working more. So
Okay.
that's more of the issue than anything else. I don't know. What do you think, Anthony?
I think the exact same thing. I don't think it's like, okay, we're going to look down on you because you don't have one. It's just that I think, you know, by nature of having an attorney, I think kind of what AJ is saying is like, someone has the tunnel vision on the case. Someone can look at it and they're like, these are the things we need to be talking about, and these are the things we don't. And so, I mean, you're wasting, I think.
Because I guess you guys can get through the fluff too, because somebody might come to you with, they might think they have a case, and they'll give you all this details, like I did, for example, and then it's not really like this really big thing. So you're able to tell me in that moment, like, okay, I know you feel this way, but it really wasn't against the law.
It's, you know what I'm saying? I think it's easy for us as a third party to be able to separate your feelings from the law.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, and I think you really need that. And that's kind of, I mean, if a lawyer doesn't do anything else for you, they can do that.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you think about your matter, you were like, you had like a lot of big plans. And I was
a lot of big plans, and y'all shut me down, and I had to just be like,
I was like, yeah, they're going to tell you to F off, Crystal, on that one.
And I was pretty much just like, but I just knew, I was like, but then that's why when you mentioned documentation, I kind of pivot that, because I'm like, you just don't really know until it's time to show up with something you don't have any proof of nothing. And so it makes you feel like you should just be keeping evidence, whether it's in a matter with a divorce or a matter with a child. Like, you're supposed to have stuff from day one.
Yeah, and that's where we get into that whole hearsay thing. So I do agree with Anthony that hearsay is not necessarily a thing in civil family hearings, but in trial it is, right? So a lot of the stuff you're relying on in the hearings and these motions don't mean nothing when you go to trial if you don't have evidence to back it up, you know, and that is important. I think that you feel in your gut when something's not right. Like, I mean, in your particular matter, we're not going to go into things, but you knew something was weird. You know what I mean? Which is why you started documenting. I think that's our biggest advice. When you know things are weird on the job, things are weird like in this relationship, in this marriage,
right?
Start keeping track, because
so you're advising couples to keep notes in their phone.
Well, if you think it's going south, like, write down why you think it's going south.
It's so interesting because, like, you know, like, but with us being like the COVID-19, the quarantine, the news is saying that domestic violence numbers have like skyrocketed. Like, because I'm guessing, you know, people are at home with people that they really don't want to be around, and you're getting annoyed. And so, you know, things are coming up. So in those situations, I guess that's when people's supposed to document.
I mean, I feel like domestic violence has always been at the roof, right? I mean, there's something I do every day, right? So, like, I just think that it's just, I didn't know that many people had problems in their relationship, like physical problems, but
you can't communicate them.
Yeah, but I think that most people have an idea that this marriage is not working. Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. Like, most people know, like, this ain't been working for a while, and so
the flame went out a couple years ago.
Yeah. And so, like, or like, I don't really like the way he is raising my child or she's raising my child. Kids talk, right? Like, and that is the thing. Kids are so honest sometimes where, like, you know, if he's being left at home.
Right.
So at that moment when your child is saying every Saturday night, mommy go to park and I'm here by myself all day. You know what I mean? You need to be documented on February 12th, mommy went to park because Juvenile was there. You know what I'm saying? That needs to be documented, because when we come back to the hearing, the judge is gonna be like, "Are you just making up this?" Like, no,
Right.
I've been documenting this for a long time, Your Honor, and this is what was told to me. Because most times you ain't gonna put the child on the stand, right?
I was gonna say that. I'm gonna say, are there instances where y'all put children on the stand?
So
They don't really go. I mean, I think a child of a certain age can be manipulated to the point to where like I think most courts are not putting a child on
Understand.
yeah, to be examined and cross-examined. It will be something that you do, that the judge may talk to the child, or they also have a special attorney that they may appoint in custody cases where an attorney can talk to the child. An attorney can be a neutral person, an attorney that's not hired by either the mother or the father, just a separate attorney to where they can talk to the child. And it's like, okay, well, the child, like we can get the voice of the child out without, trying to manipulate it. So,
yeah. So I came from the Children's Law Center. I was a guardian ad litem in abuse and neglect cases, and I was also a special ed attorney. Hence my first case story. I wholeheartedly disagree. I will always argue against a child from 3 to even 18 being on the stand in a family law case. I think that is completely traumatic. I think that is completely inappropriate. You're almost putting a child in the middle of all this drama that's already in the middle of all this drama.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I think that I just don't agree with it. So to answer your question, if it's in my control, that child never takes a stand.
Okay. I'm happy to hear it because like even in the little internships that I did when I was in in college with probation and parole, I remember the guardian ad litem being there with the juveniles. And I used to be like, I still don't even like that they have to be in the courtroom, but they was in trouble. But so that was kind of, that was a little different. So in that case, like they had to be on the stand and their parents was just as crazy. So that was a little different, but I think it does make me happy to hear that you guys don't put children on the stand because even when my parents were going through their divorce, I remember I was like 11 and I was thinking that I would have to pick a parent and I would have to go sit there and I would have to say which parent did I want to stay with, which was treating me better. And I loved both of my parents equally, so I didn't want to be put in that situation. So that makes sense. Well, I'm going to go ahead and close us out with what have you guys been doing with the quarantine? Like in your downtime as business owners, has business changed? Like what have you been doing and what have you been doing to keep your time like occupied?
I think business has changed in the sense that we're not standing in court as often, only because like the courts, just like everything else, they're closing down. They're pushing matters back for months and months and months, and so I mean like our business changed a little bit because of that, but at the same time, still life goes on, and still people.
Because I'm gonna say, you guys, when you work in cases, it's not like you said in the beginning. It's not a quick process. So I'm guessing there's still work that has to be done right now in preparation to when outside open back up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's still work to be done. I think people are also still, things are happening. Like, we handle a lot of like divorce and custody things. Like people are still deciding to do those things regardless of the coronavirus.
So obviously there's no virtual court cases right now. Like that's not a thing. Or is that a thing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in court like once a week. You know what I mean? People are still getting locked up, unfortunately. This is the problem with our system, is that in order for it to stay in place, people have to continue to be locked up, right?
Okay.
People officers can't just stay their ass at home like they should
Right.
be. They out here still locking up young black men. And so the system is still going, and people need representation. People need they need someone to stand in for arraignments.
The quarantine is not stopping the lockups.
No. They slowed down from the unlawful entries and theft cases.
Okay.
But they're still jumping out on kids, trying to search to see if they got drugs and guns, unfortunately. Okay. But everything, money has slowed down for everybody, I think. But I think for criminal matters and like Anthony said, family matters, we still on the phone and
y'all still in business on the up and up.
We ain't getting paid, but we in business.
It's okay. You gonna reap the benefits later.
Yeah.
Well, all right, guys. I'm gonna go ahead and end this meeting. Thank you again for your time. I cannot wait to share this. Do you guys have any final thoughts or words that you want to share?
Not for me. I mean, if you do indeed need an attorney, criminal, family, anything like that, please look us up.
And they're real cool, y'all. As y'all can see, you'll feel comfortable when you're talking to them.
We'll go the extra mile.
We'll go. Well, no, what's the slogan? What's the slogan, AJ? It's on the website.
Law firm for the people.
For the people. There you go.
I was gonna let Anthony end it out, man. I wasn't even gonna say nothing.
Law firm for the people. All right, I'm ending it right there.